After the renaissance of the beat-em-up genre that began in 2020 with the release of Streets of Rage 4, developers of similar games have hardly tried to experiment. In the previous decade, they were a bit more active. At least Dragon's Crown with its RPG elements and the Guacamelee duology with its Metroidvania structure come to mind. Nowadays, brawlers like Marvel Cosmic Invasion mostly rely on nostalgia. There are few levels the game is beaten quickly, and additional modes are supposed to stretch out the enjoyment. This is precisely why Absolum is so intriguing. It's a bold and very successful attempt to combine a beat-em-up with a roguelike. So successful, in fact, that in our end-of-year results we named it the best arcade game of 2025. We are transported to the region of Talem, which is going through hard times due to a breach in the world's fabric. After the cataclysm, wars broke out in every kingdom, and as a result the villain Azra seized control of the territories. He banned the use of magic, leaving very few people willing and able to oppose him. They live in the only sanctuary safe for mages. Our task is to defeat Azra's minions and eventually the villain himself, while helping the local inhabitants along the way. At the start, only 2 out of 4 heroes are available, the dwarf Carl and the warrior Galandra. No matter whom you choose, the core loop is the same. From the sanctuary, which serves as a starting hub, you set out on expeditions and try to get as far as possible. If you manage to defeat 1 or 2 bosses, great, you're ready for tougher challenges in the next region. If not, no big deal, you've gained experience and can use the progression system to make the next runs a little easier. In many ways, Absolum feels like other roguelikes. For example, you encounter branching paths and choose which area to head into. This was also featured in the recent The Rogue Prince of Persia, which had a similar quest system based on traveling across regions. Go one way, you meet a side character, talk to them, and the next time you can complete their quest in a different location. This encourages you not to wander through the same maps over and over, but to make each run feel unique, at least at the beginning. As a result, you travel from one point of the world to another fighting enemies. The unusual part lies in the combat system. When you encounter a group of foes, the camera stops following your character and locks in one position, while the left and right edges of the screen act like walls. If you try to throw an opponent off-screen, they bounce back and fly toward you, letting you juggle them in the air. The fights feel very much like what Streets of Rage and similar action games offer. The playable characters mostly rely on hand-to-hand combat. They have normal attacks and combos as well as special skills. Plus, every hit on an enemy restores mana, which is needed to cast Arcana's spells. But the most important button is the dash. If you press it during an enemy attack and tilt the stick toward the opponent, you can parry the strike and immediately launch your own combo. However, if the enemy winds up and a red symbol appears above them, that attack cannot be parried. You'll need to use the same dash button and tilt the stick up or down to dodge. All of this makes the combat system so engaging that you even feel disappointed when you clear an arena too quickly. Add to that parries using a skill or arcana at the exact moment of an enemy attack, grabs when approaching foes, the ability to attack multiple targets at once, and much more, and you get one of the most fun beat-em-ups out there, one that even makes Streets of Rage 4 look a bit pale in comparison. Part of the credit for this goes to the studio Supermonks, which spent many years creating animated series for French television and is now making its first video game. Absolum looks stylish, distinctive, and boasts high-quality animations. The only real complaint is that the locations get repetitive fairly quickly. Even with branching paths leading to visually different areas, the runs lack enough visual variety, especially if you get stuck and have to repeat the same route multiple times. This happens because the locations are not procedurally generated but handcrafted, and enemy groups are also placed by the developers rather than by an algorithm. On one hand, the authors tried to make every arena exciting without relying on randomness. On the other, surprises are rare. Stronger with every attempt, the roguelike nature of Absolum also shows in how your character evolves during a run. Builds often determine which moves you'll rely on throughout a particular expedition. Will parrying attacks cause enemies to burn, or will opponents start catching fire from normal hits? Maybe you love jumping and want to increase damage from aerial attacks. Or perhaps you're great at dodging and every successful evasion creates a damaging spark above the enemy's head. These passives drop occasionally after clearing arenas and you must choose one of two options. There aren't many bad ones. You can also strengthen your character in other ways. You hire AI companions in places where they usually hang out and hope they survive until the boss fight. You buy accessories from merchants using gold dropped by enemies. For example, there's a talisman that increases luck and improves the chance of getting useful items. You try to use arcanas and throwable weapons more often. Axes, daggers, and similar items are consumables that appear almost everywhere. And after defeating bosses, you make tough choices by selecting so-called inspirations, some of which even grant new moves quite frequently. Often, clearing an arena rewards you not with passives, but with currency that can't be used during the run. It's only spent back at the base. There you can purchase permanent upgrades from the Tree of Souls, and almost everyone feels useful. At first, these are simple boosts to starting health, critical hit chance, and throwing weapon damage. Later, you unlock better drop rates for rare accessories, more throwable weapons, and increased aerial attack power. At some point, you'll even get a bonus that lets your character instantly revive with a small amount of health upon death, knocking down all nearby enemies. If you're lucky and use this chance well, you can later restore health with food that sometimes drops from crates and enemies. After finishing Absolum, only one question remains. Why hasn't anyone tried combining these two genres before? The symbiosis feels almost perfect. Beat-em-ups are usually finished in a couple of hours, after which you return to them again and again, trying different characters and difficulty levels. Roguelikes are also designed for multiple playthroughs and additionally offer progression within each run, making every attempt feel unique. Perhaps merging these genres isn't as simple as it seems, but the creators of Absolum succeeded. The game turned out to be a fun action title that works equally well as both a roguelike and a beat-em-up. Pros: excellent fusion of two genres, fantastic combat system with unique moves and beat-em-up mechanics for each character. Most upgrades you collect during a run are useful or at least feel useful. The ability to permanently improve stats even after failed runs helps make the game a bit easier for those who struggle. Charming visual style. Minuses: locations are not procedurally generated, so repeated runs through the same areas start to feel too similar.